Welcome to a briefing for the speakers for the 2020 National Aging and Law Conference. I'm going to talk about written materials and PowerPoint requirements. First, I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for agreeing to speak at this year's conference. The quality of our speakers, the quality of the written materials, the quality of the PowerPoints that we use for National Aging and Law Conference contribute tremendously to the experience of our audience and participants. And I want to thank you. We couldn't do the conference without each and every one of you. There are three things that we need from speakers this year. Speaker release form, it's an online form. There'll be a link sent to you by email. There's nothing to print, sign, it's all done online. It only takes a minute to complete. Please get that done. We have to have a release from every speaker before the program goes forward. We need written materials from you, and we need PowerPoints from you. And those are due by August 22nd, 2020. That gives us about 2 months before the program date to compile the materials, get the CLE filing done. There are several states that require that the CLE written materials be available prior to accrediting the program, and if we have them 2 months before the program date, it allows us to try to get as many state accreditations as possible before the actual program date. The materials are emailed to aba-cle-materials@americanbar.org. Please consider written materials and PowerPoints two distinct products. These are apples and oranges. Written materials are detailed and have citations to them. PowerPoints are really your background, your visual references for when you're speaking. The PowerPoints should be less detailed than your written materials. It's a good idea to coordinate the two, but they should be thought of as two distinct products, and we'd really like to have both for every session this year. For written materials, we're looking at 20 to 40 pages per session with substantive references and citations. We really don't care what text or format, what format the citations are in. They can be Blue Book, they can be APA, they can be MLA. The important thing is that we be able to find it. It can be in-text citations or footnotes or endnotes. However you want to do that, the important thing is that people are able to find the underlying law, case law, practices, policies, ethics rules that you're referring to. We do CLE for National Aging and Law Conference for every jurisdiction that will allow accreditation for live online programming. So we have to meet the highest standard. I have a friend who's licensed in North Carolina and Virginia. She says typically if she gets 12 hours of CLE accreditation in North Carolina, she gets 8 hours in Virginia. Virginia has an extraordinarily high standard. So we aim to meet that highest standard. And for that, on written materials, we need a narrative text in prose, sort of in the form of an article, an issue brief, an essay, something you'd read in a journal or a magazine. That style of writing is really what they're looking for, and they want it to have citations to substantive law, to case law, to rules, policy, standards of practice. Ethics must be focused on ethics and should have citations to the rules of ethics. You can cite to the rules of ethics in every session. It falls into everything that we do, but specifically on ethics, we need primary citations to the ethics rules. We can reprint previously published materials. If you reserve the right to reuse them and you have the original text, send us the Word file and we will work from there. If they're previously formatted, they've been published by someone else and they've been formatted and put into form with headers and footers and where it was published at on it, we need a release. Most of the time you're able to email the Bar Association or the CLE provider that previously published them, ask for permission to republish for the National Aging and Law Conference. You get an email back saying yes, forward that email to us. 9 out of 10 times, that's how that's done. There's not a formal form or particular format that's required for those releases. But if we're reprinting something that was printed by someone else, we need a release for it. If the materials are online, we can link to online materials, and we don't need a release to link to online materials. It's really a very easy way to do it. It's also a way to connect with large or voluminous materials. If you have 20 pages on your website on a particular topic, or 200 pages on a website on the topic that you're interested in, that it'd be background material or reading or in-depth material on the topic that you're talking about. Create a page or two or three that has a title, a short description, a paragraph or so describing what those online materials are, and a link to where they're at. Make sure those links are to sites that are publicly available, not member only or login and password materials, but that are available to anyone who clicks on that link. And we can link to those online materials. It's a great way to connect to large volume materials. For the lightning round, remember you have 5 minutes. At a minimum, for written materials, we need a one-page overview. The overview is who you are, what you're talking about, what the key takeaway from it is, and but feel free to put in longer written materials. We've had lightning round speakers in the past who've put in 20 pages of materials because they had a 20-page essay or 20-page article, but they're only going to talk about it for 5 minutes. That's fine. We can do longer materials, but at a minimum for each lightning round presenter, I need a one-pager. We need PowerPoints for every session this year. And for the lightning round, you've got 5 minutes. My recommendation is 3 to 6 slides usually work. It's unusual for a speaker to get through more than 7 or 8 slides without running out of time. And I've had speakers that only had 2 or 3 slides, and that works fine. You want to introduce yourself, say what the main topic is, the key takeaway points or return to your office action points, and how to learn more. So if I were going to do that, I'd actually do those 4 slides: an introduction, a main topic, key takeaways, and how to learn more about the topic for lightning round speakers. For the presentation PowerPoints, they're required for each session. There's multiple speakers on each session, so please get together with your panelists and create one PowerPoint that works for the whole 2-hour time block for all of the speakers together in one file. Try to avoid death by PowerPoint. Death by PowerPoint is copying and pasting all of the text from your written materials into your PowerPoint slides, and they get dense, they get heavy, people nod off, fall asleep, zone out. For PowerPoints, we recommend more images and less text, focus on one issue per slide, minimize the number of bullet points. Most of the experts agree 3 to 5 bullet points per slide, and keep the bullet points to 1 sentence or less. If it doesn't fit on 1 line, edit it down, make it shorter. Keep it simple. 4 quick tips for more effective PowerPoints. Your PowerPoint is not your message. Here's an example of a copy and paste out of the written materials onto a PowerPoint slide, and it easily becomes so dense and so busy that people get busy reading this, and they're not going to hear you, and they're not going to hear your message. If all they need to do is read it, put it in the written materials, make your PowerPoint not your message, make it a visual reinforcement, a background for what you're going to be talking about. Use memory triggers to remind you what it was you wanted to talk about, and also a significant part of an adult audience, about 1/3 of the adult audience, are visual learners, and the trigger will help them to remember what it was you were talking about and the text that went along with that. Please don't put so many words on the slide that you're tempted to read the slide like I'm reading this slide right now. Keep it very simple and use memory triggers, a word, a phrase, just very, very short bullet points to remind you what it was you wanted to talk about, but avoid putting the text of what you were planning to say on your slides. Use graphics and images, again, with that reference that between 1/3 and 2/3 of adult learners are visual learners or visually oriented. images catch their eye, they stick in their memory. So photos, graphs, clip art, please use these things liberally. Be careful on large text items or large illustrations. The speaker that put this chart up on the board actually started in with you. If you look in row 7, column 6, you'll find, and nobody in the room can find row 7, column 6. If you show a slide like this, the way to use it is, I wanted to show you this so you could see how complex the issue is. Now let's focus in on the relevant part of this, and then focus in on the next slide to just that little clip piece. Very effective use of the slide if it's done that way, but don't put that complex of a set of information up and expect the audience to be able to follow along. Tip number 4 is edit, edit, edit. For online presentations, I'd allow 1.5 to 2 minutes per slide. So 60 to 90 slides for each 2-hour session. If you come in with 120 slides, most panels are going to have a hard time getting through that. In the last 10 or 15 minutes, they're going to end up rushing through the slides, trying to get finished up in a hurry. In live in-person presentations, we usually say 2 to 3 minutes. Online, I find we go through slides just a little bit faster, but I'd allow 1.5 to 2 minutes per slide. And do some practice. Check and see how fast you're going through your slides. Thank you again. Thank you for being a part of this really important conference, and for working with us this year in 2020 with all of the changes that have gone on in the conversion to a virtual format. Please email me with any questions or concerns, and I look forward to working with you through the fall. Thanks.